We bring in our next guest today, and that is Ross Volkmer. He is a radio broadcaster at Goodland and the voice of the Goodland Cowboys. And man, you've been calling Fort Hays Tech Northwest games as well there in the college. So hey, appreciate you coming on. I mean, this time of the year, like, is this a downtime for you at all, or do you just go right into the next sport?
You know, there was a little bit of downtime. Actually, it was a little bit of a slower time. First of all, Cole, thanks for having me on. I love the show. Long time watcher, first time joiner, something like that. You know, yeah. Anyway, no, it's this year was different. You know, this snapped a streak, I think, of 5 consecutive years that Goodland basketball did not go to the state tournament. And so it was a weird March where we did not go to state. I always joked with a lot of people. I said, I get to go to my second home in Hutch. I have a place down there because with all the success that volleyball and basketball had, we were down there so much these last 5 years or so, and this was the first year that we didn't make a trip down there, and it was kind of weird. But nonetheless, so it was one of those years where I didn't have a whole lot to do during that state tournament time, and got to enjoy a little bit of downtime, got to get out of town for a few days, which was nice, but not too much downtime. Actually, this morning before the interview, I was working on getting ready for baseball, which starts up here on Thursday, coming up here later this week. So yeah, it's going to be it's right back to it, but it's not as busy. You know this to yourself. When you're doing basketball, Cole, you're getting ready for 2 games a night.
Yeah,
you got a women's game and a men's game, and if you're a big time prepper like I know you are and myself is, that's a lot of work. You take a lot of time to get your prep ready and get ready for that kind of stuff. Baseball and softball season for me is a little different. I only do 1-2 teams, so it's like baseball for that day or softball for that day. So I'm only get ready for 2 teams, and I feel like it's less stressful for me in that department. So it makes it a little bit more fun. Still busy, but maybe just not as hectic.
Well, I mean, yeah, I wasn't expecting to go into the nuts and bolts already. We're play-by-play, but like also I feel like spring sports, or at least for baseball and softball, like I want to say it's so much more chill, but from a broadcasting standpoint, like it's just like, you talk about the storytelling and just, I don't know, it just feels like a more relaxed broadcast as well.
It is. You're absolutely right. It's way more chill. There's just not as much. And I mean, you still need to have good preparation because you got to fill more time. But at the same time, it is a little bit more chill. I would agree.
Did you always like calling baseball and softball? Because I remember, when I first started, I was almost intimidated to call baseball games at first because, just feeling that silence. Like I felt like I had to fill every second, on the air, and okay, if it's not a ball, it's not a strike. If they didn't hit it, what am I supposed to say? I remember early on, I was very intimidated to call baseball, softball. Was that ever a feeling for you, or were you just always love it?
For me, it was kind of my first real thing into play-by-play, to be honest with you. I went to Northwest Missouri State over in Maryville, Missouri, and I had a buddy of mine who was doing the coverage of their baseball program at Northwest Missouri State. And so, and he's like, I need another guy to come help me and do some stuff like that. And so I did. I was willing to go and go with them on the road. And so it was kind of the first thing that I did was work on baseball, and so I just got used to it and it was the sport that I got the most reps at early on in my career, and so it's one of those things that it just kind of came a little bit more natural to me because I got more reps than football and basketball and softball and other sports, and so yeah, I have enjoyed it, and I do feel comfortable in it for the most part.
Did you always know you wanted to get into broadcasting, immediately when you went to Northwest Missouri? Was that always the thing?
I wanted to get into sports. I wanted to be into sports somehow, some way. I remember when I was in high school, I was like, I want to do something in sports, but is that like athletic training? I'm definitely not smart enough for that. Is it broadcasting? Is it administration? I want to do something. And growing up in high school, I was pretty good at we called it speech, but I think here in Kansas they call it forensics. I was pretty good in speech and things like that. And so I don't know, I'm going to try this talking thing. And I liked Sports Center, so I went to college. I was like, I think I'm going to go and do television there at Northwest Missouri State. And I did it for a couple semesters, but then my buddy's like, can you come help us on the radio program and do this? And I was in radio all from that point. I really enjoyed radio. It was just more simpler. Just enjoyed the way, just the way, everything about it. I've enjoyed radio a little bit more than television.
What was it like getting your first gig? What was the process and just the job hiring process like for you getting that first job?
It's I remember when it was my senior year of college, and I was working part-time. It was my junior and senior year of college. I was working part-time for an ESPN affiliate in St. Joe, Missouri for Dave Riggert, who's now the play-by-play voice of the James Madison Dukes, for those who want to know. So great guy. He was also at Kansas Wesleyan prior to that, going over to Missouri Western. He was the voice of Missouri Western. And so anyway, I was working part-time with him, and so I was doing some games for him on an audio stream. I did a couple radio games. I did some baseball. So I did a couple basketball, did a lot of football for him. And I just kind of thought, oh man, this is great. He's the only guy there. They're looking to, I think they're probably going to expand. I'm going to be right in the right spot to get a job, and have this job on ESPN there in St. Joseph. This would be great. And it never happened. And they never expanded. It was always just kind of Dave doing his thing. And so I remember coming back home. I grew up on a farm in southeast Nebraska. And I remember worked on the farm for the next 3 months and applied for multiple jobs. Didn't really hear much. Finally got a response for this Goodland job that I'm currently in, but I didn't end up getting the job. Bryce Kessler, a good friend of mine, ended up getting it. And so I was without a job for another month. And then my former boss coming back, and he's like, hey, I'd like you to come and do an area game of the week, but also be our farm director because you're a farm kid and you can understand that stuff. And so my first gig was doing the farm director and an area game of the week and some sales over in Colby, and did that for 5 years. And then everyone left here in Goodland, and I came over and filled this spot. And that's kind of where I've been ever since.
Yeah, it's worked out really well. But you talk about your evolution too. Like, I mean, what's impressed me about, like obviously the sports brought you in, but you got involved with sales, and even the management side of things a little bit too. So like how much have you enjoyed just kind of evolving your career over the last few years?
I've enjoyed it. It's been great. It's been really eye-opening and I don't think a lot of young broadcasters get this. I really just don't think they do. There's a lot of kids that go to college and they're like, I'm gonna go and do sports.
Sure.
And you can, but you're not gonna make a lot of money, and you may not be fully employed. That's the thing. When you go into small market, particularly, you have to be able to do a lot of different things. You've got to do some sales. You got to do sports. You need to do, maybe it's a morning show. Maybe it's severe weather. You've got to do all news. You got to do all these different things. And it's amazing to see the youth of radio come out, particularly the last few people we've had hired over here. They come in here and they think, well, we're just going to do sports and that's going to be it. I'm like, no, we need you to be doing a lot of the things too. And so I appreciate that, my former boss kind of let me kind of feel my way through that. I had a couple of years like that, and then kind of found my way in sales and have kind of worked my way up in that. So, and that's how you make money in this industry. If you're gonna make some decent money, you got to be able to do sales in this industry, unless you're going to be Kevin Harlan or something like that. And getting to that level is very, very hard to do. Very, very hard.
I'll be waiting for you to get to that level. All right. So like you mentioned, it was kind of a weird March for you. Like, you've seen a lot of really good teams, whatever sport it is. We've also seen a lot of good athletes. I saw the news on Talexa Weeter with transferring from Fort Hays, obviously went to Goodland High School. Man, I'm excited for her. I'm sad for Fort Hays, but man, that's pretty exciting just to see, a girl that you were able to cover throughout her career at Goodland High School, and having the success that she's had has been remarkable.
Oh, it's super cool. So happy for her. What a great young lady. I remember when she was in high school, and she was putting up just great, ridiculous numbers for Goodland and helping them. She was a part of multiple great teams that won 20 plus or 20. She was part of the streak that won 20 plus straight, and back to back state championships. She was a part of all of that in building that and helping build this great culture that Goodland Cowgirl basketball is. And I remember, she really wanted to go and be a Division I basketball player. That's what she wanted. And, she was hoping that some schools would call, and they never really did. And Fort Hays State came and gave her an offer, and she took it, and she has ran with that, as we have seen, becoming, the MIAA player of the year. She could be the D2 player of the year. She's the leading scorer in Division II, one of the leading scorers in all of college basketball for the women. She's been fantastic. And this is, as I mentioned before, this is what I love about the portal. I don't like many things about the transfer portal or today's college athletic scene. I don't like a lot of that stuff. But if there's one thing that I like about the transfer portal, it's this kind of situation. A kid that got overlooked because maybe they didn't go to a big enough school or didn't play the toughest competition. They go somewhere and they prove themselves, and now getting an opportunity to go play at the biggest level. And I can just see her going and playing at, who knows, maybe it's a Kansas or a Kansas State or an Oklahoma State or or something like that. It'll be so awesome to see her perform because I think she'll be continuing to be very, very good, even at a higher level.
All right, let's keep playing this game. I like this game of Goodland greats. Lincoln Cure. So at what point when calling his games, like, did you realize, all right, this guy's different? Like at what point?
Honestly, I think it probably didn't happen until his junior year. His freshman year, he didn't play a whole lot, and they had him at quarterback, and he didn't play much. And then his sophomore year, they put him at wide receiver, and he made a touchdown catch against Norton in overtime to win, and that was kind of his first big play. And then and I think what happened was it was his sophomore year of track, and Lincoln will probably correct me on this if I'm wrong, but sophomore year of track, he went out and put up some ridiculous numbers, and they saw this kid that was just this big kid, just this massive human that could run so fast and do all these things, and that's when it kind of started. He went to a couple of these elite camps, and he flashed, and that's where it was. And then he came in his junior year, and they had him playing wide receiver, and he was making a ton of great catches and breaking tackles and doing all these things and putting up big time yards. They kind of flipped the offense for him. Before his freshman and sophomore years, they were doing kind of the more single wing and running the football, and they pass it every now and then. And then his junior and senior year, they flipped the offense to a spread attack, and they put his skills on display, and he went and caught everything and had multiple touchdowns, and that continued into his senior year. So I probably would say the end of his sophomore year, when he had all these great showings, between his sophomore and junior in that summer year where he had these great showings athletically at camps and things like that. And then his junior year, he came onto the scene and put up the numbers like you thought. And then his senior year, he stacked upon that as well.
Yeah, a lot of fun athletes, a lot of fun broadcasts. Hey, Ross, appreciate the time, and keep up the good work.
Anytime, my friend. Great to visit with you.
That is Ross Volkmer, a radio broadcaster out of Goodland. We'll have more of the show right after this.